Today we're going to talk all about electronic drums. Now more than 50% of new drum sets sold are electronic, so it's time we start looking at this instrument as its own unique beast. Not something to replace acoustic. It's not acoustic versus electric. So many drummers are using this as their primary instrument to learn on, to gig on, to practice on, and we need to start looking into it more and diving into what we can do to actually improve our experience behind the kit. So let's get started. Now, electronic drums can be a great way to get started. They're really compact, they're quiet, so if you just want to play with headphones and not bother anyone else, if you live in an apartment or things like that, it can be a great alternative or a great primary drum set. Now, I've actually gigged on electronic drum sets before, and obviously I've gigged on acoustic drum sets a lot. Now, everyone has their preference, as I've been playing for more than 20 years, but personally I do prefer acoustic, but there's been many situations where the only option has been electronic, and if you know some of these tips, you'll be able to make the most of it in these types of situations. And for those of you who play electronic drum sets regularly, please feel free to put your tips in the comment section below this video so we can all share and help each other. So to get started, I just wanted to suggest that if you are primarily going to be playing electronic drums, it's really important to get some great headphones. Now, I'm just using these Shure in-ear headphones. I don't know the exact model, but they're around $99 to buy some of these, and they sound really good. They still have a nice amount of bass in them, but there's also other great headphones that you can choose to buy and really invest in some of those. If you're just using the normal, earbuds where there's a lot of other ambient sound coming in, it could really disrupt the experience and make it not as enjoyable. So start there. So once you have some decent quality headphones, the next thing I would suggest is that you take some time to learn the module. Now, you can do this just by reading the manual. I understand the manuals can be kind of dry. In Drumeo, we are creating some courses on specific electronic kits that kind of guide you through the process of unboxing, setting up, learning the module, different tips and tricks like that, although we don't have every model in there. But there's tons of videos out on YouTube where you can kind of browse what other people are sharing, what other people are doing with their module, and you can really learn a lot just from everyone else. And so take some time to really get to know the module. This is a kit I literally just sat at. I hadn't really played this that much, and we were together with the guys here, we were kind of figuring out how to turn up the music, how to change the kit, how to play different songs, and I was just kind of diving in and figuring it out. But if this kit was going to be my main kit at home, I'd really study how to use this module, how to get the most out of it, how to customize the drum sound, to change the tuning, change the triggers and how responsive they are, really try and make it fit my playing style as opposed to just leave it how it is out of the box. Everyone plays kits a little bit differently, and so based on how you hit them, where you hit them, your level of dynamics, you might want to go in there and adjust those types of things. So as I was preparing to do this lesson, I asked everyone on Facebook and Instagram, and I said, what are some tips for electronic drummers? Because admittedly, I don't play electronic drums that much, but I wanted to kind of get a pulse on what the community is saying. And one of the tips was kind of surprising and one that I've never heard before, and that is using nylon tipped sticks. Now this is most applicable when you're having a mesh head. Okay, so you'll see here on the snare drum, this is the Roland mesh head, and if these wood tips were splintered or anything like that, and I was banging on the drums over and over again, so this could actually damage the mesh head, and that's why nylon tips would be a better choice. The reason drummers use nylon tips or wood tips on the kit is because the tip actually does change the sound on the cymbals. So if you're playing an actual cymbal, not a rubber cymbal, the nylon tip will sound different. But on electronic drums, the type of tip you have on your sticks, it doesn't really make as big of a difference. It doesn't really make any difference, to be honest with you. Now, the next tip I want to give you is similar to the nylon tipped sticks, and that is with your bass drum pedal. Now, you'll see here I'm using the Yamaha bass drum pedal. I know it's a little bit sacrilegious putting a Yamaha bass drum pedal on a Roland drum set. Oh my goodness. These two, they really hate each other, right? Not really, just joking. But the felt bass drum beaters hitting against the mesh head, I have heard reports of that actually damaging that mesh head, wearing through it quicker, and so it's just something to be aware of. Some people are saying to use a plastic or a wood beater, as that will wear down the mesh in a much, much shorter time. But for me personally, all I've seen is it starting to fluff and flake all over the place and just kind of wear down the beater as opposed to the head. But I don't want to speak to your specific use case, so if you are concerned about having to replace the mesh head on the bass drum pad, then make sure that you switch to a plastic or a wooden beater. Now, the next one is probably the most important tip, and this is the biggest thing I see from drummers who play electronic drums as a way to practice, so that's not their main way of actually gigging or their main way of like what they consider to be them playing drums. They really see themselves playing an acoustic kit, but all they can play is an electric kit for reasons of volume or for reasons of space or things like that, is when they transfer from an electric kit to an acoustic kit, the dynamics become an issue. So if I'm playing a groove, a lot of drummers will go into the settings and actually just turn the hi-hat louder, rather than actually just hitting it harder. And then when they get to an acoustic kit, they can't do that. And so you see a lot of drummers going from electric to acoustic, and they're hitting their hi-hats way too hard. They're hitting their snare way too quiet. They're hitting their bass drum way too quiet, because when they're playing their electronic kit, the bass drum is loud. You can make it loud just from simply tapping it, by just going into the module and making the trigger that responsive, and it's just cranking up the volume on that. So you still have to be mindful over what you're practicing. So what I would suggest doing is taking one ear out and actually listening to how you're hitting the rubber pads. I want a nice, strong snare stroke. If I'm playing rock, and a nice, strong bass drum hit. But I don't want the hi-hats to be too overly chunky. I really just want to be able to control my dynamic limb independence. So if I want the hi-hat to be louder, I'm able to do that. I'm not just simply cranking it up. And that's a really hard and fine line to balance, because when you're hitting the hi-hat, it will only go so loud no matter how hard you hit it. So there are cases where you need to crank it up. It's just hard to know when exactly to do that. So it is really important to be able to play and adjust the velocity of this, make this louder, make this quieter. Same with the bass drum, same with the left foot, same with the left hand. So really think about that when you play your kit, and when you get on an acoustic kit, test yourself. Make sure that you can control your limbs independent of one another to really get the dynamics sounding great. So if you plan to play acoustic kits as well, just try your best to get some regular practice in on one, just to make sure that all the skills are transferring in a way that you would expect them to. And if you need to make any adjustments when you go back to your electric kit, do that. So many drummers, they find that they sound way better on an electric kit and can play way faster, only to get on an acoustic kit and you get a reality check. So one of the big things with drumming is utilizing rebound. It's a huge part of playing drums. It affects your timing, it affects your feel, it affects dynamics. And the differences between the rebound on an electric kit and a rebound on the acoustic kit is massive, okay? So my floor tom here is a rubber pad. You see how easy it is to do that on an electric kit floor tom, whereas I could not do that on an acoustic kit where it's tuned really low and it's kind of flappy and it has a great sound, but there's no way I'm doing fingers like this on that floor tom, right? So transitioning between the snare and the floor tom is a lot lot easier when you're playing an electric kit because the feel is very similar. They both feel a little bit like trampolines. So really be mindful of that. When you get on an acoustic kit and you have this specific fill and this snare roll going from the snare to the floor tom, know that it's not going to feel the same. If you're used to practicing on an electric kit with your band or whatever, then you go and you finally do your gig, you're so excited to get to play your acoustic kit, you're out of the house, no one's going to complain about the noise. You go and do your big fill.
If you're just a proxy on electric it with your bad at everything,
Siri thinks I'm
excited. Check it out.
What was that?
You got me.
All right. So apparently Siri is listening in on this lesson as well. He needs to learn some stuff about this. So as I was saying, if you have that big fill, you're ready. It's your moment to do your big fill. You're gonna start flying around the drums on an acoustic kit. It's all gonna fall apart if you've never actually practiced it on that acoustic kit before, because it's going to feel way different. Now, another thing that you need to consider if you're going to be practicing on an electric kit but also playing an acoustic is you really need to still understand the basics of drum tuning, okay? So you need to be able to go to a house kit in the church or in the club or whatever, and you need to be able to tune it and get it to sound really, really good. If you're used to just flicking on the module and you got great sounding toms, I literally just sat down and I hit these and they sounded great. And I can change these to any sounding drum. You know, all these toms sound incredible, but it's not the same way on an acoustic kit, because even if I hit this poorly, if I hit it kind of lightly and with not any sort of like conviction, it still sounds good. On an acoustic kit, it won't sound good at all. You can sound really, really amateur if you don't really know how to hit the drums, how to lay into them a certain way, and how to really tune them in a way that brings out their best sound. So make sure you go and develop your ears, start tuning, and get some practice up on that. And when it comes to setting up an electric kit, you'll notice here it's quite compact. My toms are really, really close together. They're actually a little bit too flat right now. So I kind of have to like lift up my shoulders to play them. But one thing you'll notice is it's super compact. The floor tom is really close to the mid tom. They're almost very close in height as well. Whereas normally the high tom, or the mid tom I should say, would be a little bit higher, farther away from the floor tom. There might be a ride cymbal blocking because I have a nice big 22-inch or 21-inch Peisty ride here. And so it's a very compact kit. Now, if you are going to be switching between electric and acoustic, it's important to recognize that when you go and sit down at your acoustic kit, the distances between things are going to be farther. So if this is something you want to kind of figure out now and make the transition easier, I would recommend that you set up your electric kit in a way more similar to your acoustic. So then when you go from one to the other, the transition is super, super easy. But in this case, I do like having it compact. I feel like it's a different instrument. I can play it differently. There's certain benefits, and one of those being it is very compact. I can move between the toms quickly and fast because they have tons of rebound, they're really close together, and everything is just right here. And so that's one of the big benefits of these electronic drum sets. So there are some tips for those of you that are playing electronic drums. If you have any more tips or if you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below. It's really important that we share with each other what is working, what isn't working. We can all learn so much from each other. And if you play an electronic kit and you hear people telling you, oh, you should get an acoustic, or this isn't a real kit, just ignore them, okay? It's not gonna help any of us to even consider what those people are saying. It's pointless to even argue with them. It's not about whether this is a valid way to play drums or not. You are playing the drums, you are learning your rudiments, you are playing music, you can jam with other people. These kits are great, and they are really doing a great service for the entire drumming community because they're making drumming more accessible to a wider audience. I was in Southeast Asia last year, in Singapore, and it was just amazing to see so many great drummers. But as you know, those places are very heavily populated, and acoustic drums just are impossible for some of them. So they're making drumming more accessible, and it is a good thing all around. So thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you very soon.